AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy Holiday.
Hey, Trojan family, welcome back to the USC LAFB show here on the LAFB network. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. Hope everyone is doing well wherever you are watching or listening. We always appreciate it. USC has added another opponent to their 2026 schedule. They had, going into this morning, technically 2 non-conference slots open. Fresno State is scheduled to open the season with them on September 5th. And then the Notre Dame game is still tentative. It is not officially scheduled. I know a lot of people kind of assume that that is on the books for this year. Hopefully it will be, but that is not official. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more before we wrap up the show. But they did add an official non-conference opponent that will be their second game of the season on September 12th. And it is the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns of the mighty Sun Belt Conference. This is the first time that these two opponents will face each other. USC did play, they're 2-0 in the Sun Belt Conference overall. They played Georgia Southern. Obviously, everyone knows the Clay Helton Bowl last year, who is a member of the Sun Belt Conference as well. So this will be their third time playing in that conference and see if they can go 3-0, which they obviously should. If they don't, then we've got real problems. Louisiana is 0-6 against the Big Ten Conference, so look to get that to 0-7 potentially. And then per FBschedules.com, USC will pay a premium price of $1.3 million to the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns. I said that really. The Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns will get that fee in order to come to Los Angeles and play this game. If many of you are wondering, like, why, that's kind of how these games get settled. This is not a USC thing. This is any real Power 4 team that wants to play essentially a cupcake game, or really just a non-conference game for that matter. Like, you kind of pay the opponent to travel out and come play for you, or come play against you, excuse me. So that's nothing new or weird if you see that number and think that's odd. I think UCLA paid New Mexico like almost $2 million last year or this season and lost at the Rose Bowl. That was like a big story. Like, wow, you paid this much money to play this team and lose. So yeah, as long as you don't lose the game, it's worth it in that regard. So that is set. Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns, week 2. So you open with Fresno State and then you get Louisiana. And then that week 3, depending how the schedule kind of lays out, typically now with this new 9 conference game schedule within the Big Ten, you would see most likely that week 3 game is another non-conference game, and then you just go straight into 9 straight conference games. I know in the past, SC always kind of had a Pac-12 game early, then they would throw in another non-conference game, and then obviously the Notre Dame game has always been later in the season, which is a non-conference. But that was more when there was 8 conference games, so there's a little more flexibility. Like USC always played, not always, but for many of the past seasons played Stanford like week 2, for example. But it looks like the way this is shaping out, it'll be 3 straight non-conference games and then 9 straight conference games to end the year. So before I talk Notre Dame, this is your schedule right now for 2026. I'm sure many of you have seen it, but for those that don't, I'll flash this up on the screen so you can, for those visual learners or visual remembers, this is what you'll look like. So Fresno State and Louisiana at home. And then the order of the conference games is not announced yet. So there's no dates announced yet. So I'm just going to list them here, but that doesn't mean necessarily when they're playing them. So then they got at Indiana, and I'll do a full schedule breakdown once the season's officially fully done and we're looking at it. Indiana's going to be so I won't dive too much into each team, but Indiana's going to be a really interesting team next year, because it's really going to come down to how well they can recalibrate through the portal. And obviously they'll be playing likely late into the year. And so what will that look like? They're going to lose their quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, who's going to be the probably number one quarterback taken in the NFL draft. They're a very old team. I don't mean that disrespectfully, but they're just, a very veteran, disciplined, seasoned team. I mean, Curt Cignetti brought a lot of guys over with him from James Madison. They got a lot of guys from the transfer portal and just some guys that have been at Indiana and stayed and have been within the system for quite some time, like receiver, Elijah Surratt and others. So I'm not taking anything away from how great they've been this season, but they're going to be a really interesting team next year because they're losing a lot, and how they will kind of rebuild that is going to be interesting to watch throughout this offseason, and who they get at quarterback, whether they turn to maybe someone that young or if they go try to, poach away another portal guy who can come in and be, an elite quarterback like Mendoza was. So anyway, that'll be one to watch, but no matter what, that's going to be a tough game in Bloomington. Even if they take a step back, they're clearly going to be a well-coached, good team. They might not be a natty contender next year. I'm not saying they won't be, but maybe even if they take a step back, but they're still going to be a Big Ten title contender year in and year out as long as Curt Cignetti is there. At Penn State, another tough game. Matt Campbell just hired. Their entire recruiting class is basically gone. They're going to lose a lot in the portal. They're kind of in a rebuild, but they at least have some stability now with the coach. I think Matt Campbell's a fantastic coach, and Beaver Stadium is one of the toughest places to play, regardless how good they are or not. That's going to be a tough game. At Rutgers, there's your kind of breakaway game, but, a physical team and a defensive team that's trying to grow with Greg Schiano back there at the helm. At UCLA, so, rivalry game, not a true real road game, but that it does count as one of their road games. And then their final road game would be at Wisconsin, another tough place, Camp Randall. They decided to stick with their coach, Luke Fickell, another year and give him more kind of infrastructure and NIL to rebuild the way he wants. So Wisconsin should be improved, you would think. Whatever you think of Luke Fickell, I think he's a good coach. Is he a great coach? He hasn't proven that since being at Wisconsin, but I think he's a good coach. They should improve, especially if they can have some hits in the portal. But regardless if they're good or not, Camp Randall, tough place to play. So just those three, Indiana, Penn State, Wisconsin, those are three tough road games. Then there are road games in conference. You got Maryland, Ohio State, tough. Oregon, tough. And Washington, tough. So this is a brutal 2026 schedule. And so that leaves, this is kind of the next big thing that everyone's talking about. Hey, what's going on, LAFB family? Before we get to the show, got to tell you about my friends over at Sleeper, the number one sports app right now, and not just for season-long fantasy. They have daily game updates. They have a live chat that you can chat with other users. Plus, my favorite part is the daily fantasy feature, which is similar to a pick'em. You just choose two or more players across any sport, choose more or less in whatever sport that may be. So if it's football, more or less touchdowns for, Jaden Mayava. If it's Mekhi Lemon, more or less receptions. If you're looking at the Dodgers, more or less home runs for Shohei Ohtani. Really easy, and you can win real money. Right now, when you go and make your first deposit, make sure you use our promo code. You see it right there on the screen, USC LAFB. That's going to give you a match deposit bonus up to $100. You put in $100 to play with, you're going to get $100 free on top of that. You can put in 10, you get 10 free. Also, right now, our friends are offering a $20 free entry for any new signups. If you go sign up today, you'll get both those offers. You get $20 right off the bat free to play with. Plus, use that promo code USCLAFB at sign up and you'll get that match bonus as well. Go to the App Store, Google Play, download the Sleeper app today, and tell them that the USC LAFB sent you. Now, let's get on to the show. And we've been talking about it a ton, so I won't belabor it too much. hopefully won't tune me out, but that final non-conference game that everyone kind of expects it to end up being Notre Dame. But with the Murderers Row, they're already playing, man. That is a tough another game to have on your schedule. But what I will say is I fully believe, and I'm not talking about saving the rivalry. This is just strictly looking at this season's schedule, right? So we don't need to go down the whole, who's right, who's wrong, when it should be played or whatever. But I believe if they do not, or they are not able to come to an agreement to get this game in that September window as that third game, it will not happen next year. Doesn't mean it's done for good. They might put it on pause and just say, okay, well, let's kick the can on this, whatever you want to argue about, but let's kick the can. We'll schedule someone else, and then we'll pick this back up when we can, have more time to kind of figure this out. But just seeing how this schedule has played out, and when you look at Notre Dame's schedule, not very tough. USC's really in the driver's seat of hey, we want this to go, but this has to happen in September. We are not, even though it's our turn to be the home game, we're not doing this game in November in between when potentially we could play, Ohio State and Oregon and back to back to back, potentially, if it comes down like that. So I think if they won't agree to do it in September, this game will not happen next year, and they'll pick it back up. Now, their AD, who's been doing, obviously, this media tour all week, was actually just recently on a show called The Echoes, a podcast with Jessica Samantha. I'm probably saying that last name real wrong. I apologize. And Mike Golick Jr. covering Notre Dame. He was on their show and was asked about kind of, what's up? What's the latest with the rivalry? And is it happening? And this was the most from the Notre Dame side. And maybe it's because of everything that's gone on and with the college football playoff, but this was the most positive I've kind of heard the Notre Dame side in terms of, again, he didn't give any specifics, but the way it kind of just sounded to me, and I'll put a link in the clip so you can watch it, but it kind of sounded like he is more understanding kind of what USC is asking for and will potentially, whatever you want to call it, give in to those demands from USC.
Drinking and driving is a decision that will change your whole world. Things will never be the same once you get a DUI, because legal fees and time in court are just the beginning. Getting into a crash is another way your world could be irreversibly changed after drinking and driving. Your vehicle may not be the only thing that gets damaged in that crash. You could face a life-altering injury or even death. But you're not the only one who could face those consequences. Your decision to drink and drive could permanently change someone else's world, whether you injure them or leave their loved ones grieving. The next time you're out drinking, call a rideshare, a taxi, a sober friend, or a designated sober driver. Always plan for a safe ride home. The only decision that'll change your world for the better is the decision to call for a sober ride. It's never worth it to drive drunk. Don't risk it. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
So he's asked about it, and he basically says, I've had a lot of really good conversations with Jen Cohen, USC's AD. We're really close. We obviously have to take into account our schedule. We have to take into account their schedule. I can say without any doubt that both Notre Dame and USC want this game to continue, want this rivalry to live on forever. And he said, I could see us having a short-term deal resolution soon. Hopefully, nothing's done yet, but soon. And then potentially a pause, he didn't give a number, but a number of years off, and then pick it back up for the long term. So it sounds like they want to figure something out as a Band-Aid solution for the next year or two. And then maybe a pause till, USC, there's still, 3 years left out on their Big Ten scheduling before the next years get released. And then after that, maybe come to long term. So it was the first I'd really heard from the Notre Dame side of them sounding very amicable. He was very clear. I've had a lot of great conversations with Jen Cohen. We want this thing to happen. We're really close. Nothing's final yet. And so to me, and seeing the backlash that Notre Dame has been getting, and seeing the now, Yahoo just released a new article this morning, I think, is what I've been saying now for months, that, hey, big Power 4 programs are going to stop scheduling Notre Dame. It has no benefit outside of the money. Like, I get that it is a good TV draw. It is a good money draw. But in terms of for your program, there is no benefit for a Power 4 conference team to schedule Notre Dame. There just isn't. Like, your benefit now with all conferences moving to 9 games is to schedule 3 cupcakes that you're guaranteed to win and then win 8 of 9 of your conference games. And you're likely, barring some other unforeseen stuff, you're likely in the playoff. There's no benefit. So I think, and so the Yahoo article is saying, like, there is chatter now of Power 4 teams backing out of it that they've already scheduled, and many others, not necessarily, the word boycott sounds a little extreme, but basically, like, we're not going to schedule them. Like, why would we? Makes no sense. Like, we're done with them having their cake and eating it too, and standing on this proverbial soapbox of, just doing whatever they want and then complaining to the world when they don't get their way. So it sounded like that, and I don't know exactly when this interview took place with him on this show. It could have been this morning, could have been yesterday. It's during this media tour that he's on. But it sounded like he's kind of resonating with, like, okay, yeah, we want this guy. I'm no doubt Notre Dame wants this game and wants this rivalry to continue. That's absolutely, they want that. But it seems like they're now being like, okay, yeah, we do kind of need USC. Like, this could come back to bite us if we don't play by their rules and their schedule, and all these other teams start backing out and wanting to play us. Like, we may have a really hard time getting into the playoff. Like, if we couldn't get in this year, winning 10 straight games, beating SC, and our both 2 losses were to really good teams, and we still couldn't get in. Like, look at some of these future schedules. If SC's not even on that schedule, we may have a real tough time. So I'm reading between the lines. I'm adding a lot of probably context that maybe isn't fully there. But it just felt like that's the first I've heard of him really being like, yeah, we're really close. Like, we've had some great conversations. We understand the scheduling stuff. So, and like I just laid out, I don't think it happens this year unless they agree to play it in September. If you're USC and you see that schedule I just laid out, like, I understand the desire for this rivalry, but there's just no benefit to play this game in October or November in the middle of your grueling conference schedule. There's honestly not a lot of benefit to play it at all, but the tradition, the history, the alumni, the pageantry, that to me is all worth it. So I would love to see it still go on. And because it is non-conference, you do get a little bit of wiggle room if you suffer a loss there. Little bit. Not much. Not much. I mean, we saw with teams getting left out, with Texas, USC being one. Like, they still care about the overall record. 10-2 is much better than 9-3, according to the committee. Even if it's a non-conference tough road game. So yeah, there's that. So last thing I'll say on this, and then we'll put a bow on this, the whole college football playoff conversation. Because I think there's been a lot, obviously, of conversation with Notre Dame getting left out. And so many people, which I get, and maybe my opinion may not be, you may not agree with this, but I've been kind of posturing how to actually, like, say this. But a lot of people are like, hey, like, whatever you want to say about Notre Dame, like, Notre Dame's one of the 12 best teams. Like, they would absolutely blow out James Madison. They would blow out Tulane. They should be in. Like, what are we trying to do here? This isn't the whatever word you want to use, but just like the participation playoffs. Like, you gotta put in the best of the best. The only pushback I have on that, because I get it, but this is where I'd push back on that, is, okay, then where do you stop? So if you say, yeah, Notre Dame's better than JMU or Tulane, like, how would anyone think that they're not? They should be one of the top 12. I mean, I think Texas is probably better than JMU and Tulane. I think BYU is better. I think USC would beat both of those teams pretty easily and handily. Like, where do you stop from that line? Because in reality, when you had the 4-team playoff, that was really, you had the 4 best teams, supposedly, that you would put in. Now, the problem with the 4-team playoff during the time was that there was 5 power conferences. So there was always this argumentative struggle that one conference champion got left out. Sometimes two. Sometimes I think there was a few where you got, 2 from one conference getting in. Now that there's 4 Power 4, like it actually makes sense to go back to the 4-team playoff. Just take your conference champion of each Power 4 conference, and there's your playoff. But anyway, so you extend it to 12. And the thought was, okay, well, you have a few spots for some, G5 conferences to get in that who knows if you get that, strike that match while it's hot, you get that Boise State over Oklahoma win, that Cinderella story. It's not likely, but it can happen. But in reality, you still added 6 more spots for the Power 4 teams. So you went from 4 to 10 is how you look at it. And then you kind of have 2 wild card spots for G5 teams. So if you think about it like that, it's like, okay, yeah, Notre Dame wasn't one of the best 10 teams. Because if you're just saying 12, where do you stop? Where does it end? What team isn't better than one of those G5 teams, or you don't think is better within the Power 4 versus the G5? So you got to really think like, okay, there's 2 wild card spots for the G5, and it's the best 10. Notre Dame wasn't the best 10 in this scenario based on the committee. So that's my only pushback, because I just think then you just can argue with every team. Like, okay, there's so many Power 4 teams that we could say is better than Tulane. Like you could argue 8-4 TCU, who finished 9th in the Big 12, that's going to be playing USC in this Alabama. You could argue maybe they were better than Tulane. So I think it's, you're getting moot at that point. Just look at it as it's 10 Power 4 spots and 2 wild cards for the G5. So if you weren't in the top 10, sorry, that's what it is. And we'll see what expansion looks like. I still think if it's me, and it's hard now with how big these conferences are getting, but if it's me, I just make the playoff. Hey, with the Pac-12 coming back, there's going to be group of 6 conferences, and then the Power 4. So 10 total conferences. To me, I'm like, okay, there's 10 playoff teams. You could do it 2 ways. You could do 10 playoff teams, just the winner of each conference. Make it that simple. Winner of each conference. Now, you probably couldn't do that because I doubt you want to see group of 6 teams make it and only 4 Power 4 teams make it. So you double the Power 4, and whether it's an at-large or just like, hey, whoever makes the championship game, that's you're in the playoffs. That's the first round, if you will. And then go from there. So not a very nuanced answer. I've had a lot more to think about, but to me, then that puts actual emphasis on conference play, on winning your conference, and we can throw out all this dumb like at-large bids and that and yada yada. Now, obviously Notre Dame would have to join a conference if that's the case, so that would change things in that regard a little bit. But anyway, I've talked too long on this anyway. So whole point of this video: Louisiana scheduled week 2, 2026. That week 3 spot is technically still open. Hopefully it will end up being Notre Dame. We will see how close that deal gets done. If it does not happen this year, we'll see someone else get scheduled. They'll continue these negotiation and talks. And if things keep going down the path for Notre Dame in terms of teams canceling on them, we will eventually see them agree to scheduling USC in September moving forward. So I'll be back in just a little bit. I do have a transfer portal we're talking. Bunch of new linebackers have interest. I know that's the position that everyone wants to see USC add, and it's one that's probably one of the biggest needs for them to add. So I'm going to talk through some new linebacker potential portal additions and get your thoughts there. So hit that like and subscribe button, hit that bell so you get notified every video that goes up. Appreciate you, as always, family, and let's keep this thing rolling. As always, fight on.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening. Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy Holiday.